That is the hardest part of that ring.
For the hardest part of the ring. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the hardest part of the ring.
Hello and welcome to episode number 20 of Hardest Part of the Ring, the podcast where four friends get together to discuss the wonder of professional wrestling. Now, I realised that in our last podcast we said that we were going to take a week off this week and that we wouldn't be back until we reviewed Fastlane next week. But sometimes opportunities arise that you've really, got to take advantage of. So here we are, and it's an interview podcast, and we are interviewing one of the biggest heels in British wrestling at the moment, the Heat magnate himself, Mr. Spike Trivet. John and I were very lucky to sit down with Spike and talk about all sorts of things, his background in acting, how he started out at the Projo, the Progress Training School, of course, how he came out with his gimmick and his time in British wrestling so far. You'll notice that this is a two-parter. We had a really good long chat with Spike about all sorts of things, so we thought it would be good to split it up into two episodes. You're going to be listening to this hopefully on the Wednesday, and we're going to release the second episode tomorrow on Thursday. In the meantime, I hope you enjoy it as much as we did. This is the Hardest Part of the Ring interview with the king of strong and stable style himself, Spike Trivet.
Oh, face first into the apron of the ring. There's very little padding there. A dangerous area. It's not wrestler friendly, I can tell you.
Okay, we are here with possibly one of the biggest shitheads in professional wrestling right now, Spike Trivet.
Hello. What a wonderful intro.
I thought I'd sort of be a bit harsh at the start because I realise it's probably going to be quite a nice chat and you're probably going to turn out to be quite a nice guy, so I'm not going to get the chance to be mean.
Well, yeah. Well, the thing is if whatever happens is people end up hating me anyway, don't they? So they either hate me because of him, or I'll do an interview and they'll maybe think I'm kind of nice, and then they'll be even more disappointed. So I just can't win, really.
Okay. Well, firstly, thank you very much for agreeing to come on.
Thank you very much for having me. It's really cool.
Yeah, no problem. Obviously, we had Jason Santiago on the podcast a couple of weeks ago.
What a man he is.
Yes, what a man. He was singing your praises and then said that, you might be up for coming on, and I believe he got in touch and suggested it to you.
Yeah, he did, yeah. Well, yeah, such a nice guy. That's really nice of him. Thanks, Jason.
Yeah. Thanks, Jason.
Book the Mullet Man.
Yes, everybody, book the Mullet Man. John, you're also here.
Hello, I'm also here.
You're not as big a shithead.
Oh, thanks,
Still a bit
man.
of a shithead.
I've been working on it, though. A lot of personal development.
But you can learn from the best right now. Spike, well, I guess it's probably good to start sort of from the beginning, really, and just ask you how you got into wrestling, how it all began.
So when I was about 8 or 9, so every year, my family always goes to the same holiday resort in Portugal, and we had sort of family friends there, and I went back to a friend's villa, and he put on Sky One. I don't know what it was. I think it was like Velocity or something. It might have been SmackDown because the background was blue. I think
Yeah.
It was debatably SmackDown. And I'd never seen anything like that before. I had no idea what it was. So it was Test. So Test entered and he came to the ring. And then this music played. It turned out to be Shane McMahon that came out. And I remember Shane McMahon came out, and Shane McMahon comes out and he's on the microphone. And this is back when they were doing the Test Stephanie McMahon stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I just remember Shane being like, "You can't be part of my family. You're a piece of shit." I'm sorry. Can I swear?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And he's like, "You're a piece of shit. You can't be part of my family." It's ridiculous. And I remember just being wide-eyed and being like, "People deal with their problems this way." This is unbelievable. And then he sent, and then that was at the time when the Mean Street Posse was around. So then he sent I think he sent the Mean Street Posse down to the ring, and I remember just being already just being filled with outrage, just being "That's so unfair! He's one man, he can't do that." And then my first match I ever saw, I think, was turned into a match. And I think it was Test versus Pete Gas. I think it was the first match I ever saw.
Ooh.
But I don't really remember the match. But I do just remember that really overwhelming feeling of just being wow. it really pulled me in. That emotion of it really pulled me in, even though it was
Yeah.
just like a basic kind of mid-card storyline on like Velocity or whatever. I was still just absolutely enthralled by the concept that like this guy was gonna have to fight one of this guy's cronies because he was in love with his sister. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that really got me, and that was when I that was the first time I ever saw wrestling.
Amazing. That's totally what happens, isn't it? In the early days when you're a kid, it's just you're totally drawn in by the theatrics and the storylines. And I mean, I don't really remember many matches at all from the early days because you just almost waiting for the match to be over to see what's going to happen next. And how did that develop? Who were your favorite wrestlers?
Yeah, well, I just kept watching it, and like I was just really, really obsessed with it. But I don't know, because like at the time we didn't have Sky One at home, I wasn't really able to keep up with it very well. You know, so I wasn't really able to keep up with the storylines and stuff. So I never really developed like a love for like a certain character. But like I do remember, this is really shit because every time I say this, it just sounds like I'm trying to get a job. But like I was always really enthralled by Mr. McMahon. Whenever I say that, everyone's like, "Oh yeah, well, yeah, great one, Spike, good one." Like it was the McMahons, like the McMahons for me were the things that really drew me in. Like they were the things that made me keep coming back. I just loved how evil they were and like just how spiteful they were. And I used to get really excited every time Shane McMahon used to slap someone in the face and then run around the ring and get chased. Like that always used to really really excite me because I used to like really want him to get beaten up. You know, and I just there was one time, I can't remember what the match was. I think it was Breakdown 1998. There you go. Breakdown 1998. Wow. And like, that was one of the first videos I ever bought because obviously I couldn't keep up with it. So I literally only had the choice of having my mum drive me to Virgin Megastore, and then I would just go to the WWE section and just pick out random videos. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I remember that match really clearly. So that match was a triple threat match between Stone Cold, Kane, and The Undertaker, but Kane wasn't allowed to pin The Undertaker, and The Undertaker wasn't allowed to pin Kane. They both had to pin Stone Cold because the idea was they had to get the belt off of him. And then what happened? And then and then they ended up beating him. And I just remember Vince McMahon just like coming in and just taking the belt and then just like running through the stadium, and then Stone Cold chasing him. And then they get to this long like tunnel. And he's next to this limo, and then he just goes, "Hey Austin," and he's holding the Smoke and Skull belt. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And he's holding the Smoke and Skull belt, and he's like, "Hey Austin," and he's got this like the most horrible like facial, like the nastiest grimace on his face. Do you know what I mean? I just remember that so much.
Amazing at that.
Yeah, and whenever Vince McMahon's like, whenever he like does a grimace, he kind of turns into a cat's bum because his face just kind of goes inwards. Do you know what I mean? But it's just so like. And his dimpled chin just like goes in and stuff, and then he just like flips in the finger, and he's like, "This is mine!" And then he gets in the thing and drives off, and then it just goes to the credits, and I was like, "No, that can't be it!" You know, like it was always kind of those guys. It was just the evil of them. Like I'm very much into baddies, as I'm sure you can probably tell.
Yeah, we got the idea that you might be.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think that, like a lot of inspiration, and I think a lot of where Spike comes from is like my early love of just how diabolical the McMahons were, and just how much like I wanted to see them lose, and how much I just want, but sadly because of all the videos that I bought, they never lost. Do you know what I mean? Because like they couldn't buy them in order, so I don't think I ever saw the payoff of any of the storylines. I think so in my mind they're still in control, and I'm still really bitter about it.
I mean, Vince is definitely one of the greatest bad guys from TV of all time, I think.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think
Perfect.
so. I think so. And I think, like, what I loved about Mr. McMahon and then, like, and the corporate ministry and McMahon and Shane O'Mac and people like that is, like, at the time I didn't realise this. Obviously, at the time I was just like, I fucking hate you! But, like, but looking back at it now, the reason that I because I loved them was because you can connect with them. You know, like everybody understands what it's like to, you know, have a boss who's a dick, or like have somebody who like is not even your boss, but somebody who's in like a higher hierarchical, if that's a word, position than you, and they're just an asshole, you know, and you just want to punch them in the face. Like everybody understands that.
Oh yes.
And yeah, but
Yeah,
that's you know.
Totally. Well, John and I used to work together, and now we're both freelance. So you could tell our old boss wasn't ideal.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So how did you go from that, your love for the McMahons, or your hate, and then your love for the McMahons, to then, you know, thinking, is this something that I could possibly get into myself?
Well, so then there's like a 10-year gap. So then there's like I really wanted to. So when I was a kid, I really wanted to be a wrestler. I used to turn on like music in my living room and then pretend to do entrances in my living room, and
Amazing.
And then I used to do matches I used to have like matches with a teddy bear and friends. It wasn't just I had friends. Like I used to have like.
I thought you meant teddy bear and his friends. Other teddy bears.
Well, they're all dicks, aren't they? So like, I had this teddy bear that was like kind of, I think it was like 3/4 the size of me. So I used to have matches with that, and then I used to have matches with my friends and stuff. You know, like I don't think you could ever really call it backyarding. It was just messing around. Although my friend Ollie Jebb did give me a sweet AA through my dad's garden table. It was pretty sweet. Like it was sort of like we were having a match in the garden, and then he just picked me up. He was a big John Cena fan, and he just picked me up and just gave me this AA, and I just went through the garden table, kicked out. So
after one,
kicked out. Just say no. I did. I waited for the dramatic 2.9. I waited for the dramatic 2.9, but yeah, kicked out.
And were you filming these back then?
No, they weren't.
Oh, shame.
I think we did every now and again, but like, no, I can't really remember. No, I don't think we did. But if Ollie Jebb's listening, he's a big wrestling fan. He'll appreciate a shout out on a wrestling podcast.
Yeah.
Like, hey Jebb. So from this, I really wanted to so obviously there was something there. I really wanted to give it a try, but I think it was like, I'm just gonna throw him under the bus now. But my dad just didn't really understand it. Like didn't really give it a chance, and he just used to be like, and he used to say like, this is ridiculous. And then he didn't mean to. He just wanted the best for me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
You know, it wasn't like he wasn't trying to shit on my dreams. He just did by accident. But, you know, and he was kind of and he's a big influence on my life. And so I was just like, you know, I sort of told myself, you know what, it is ridiculous. I think I'll just let it go.
Yeah.
So I just let that go, and then but I still had like a hankering performance. So I just concentrated on acting for years.
Okay.
So I was an actor. So I did from then I just concentrated on acting, and I was doing 3 or 4 plays a year until I left school, and then I went to a drama foundation course, a RADA drama foundation course. Did that, got into drama school, and I went to Drama Centre London for 3 years, which is like a pretty hardcore method school. It was. It's kind of changed now. And that was also the thing is that was also a school that was based very much around physicality. So we would do like 3 hours of ballet a week. We would do like 3 hours of like movement work, and movement work was, there was 16 in my year. And one time this like bonkers Swedish woman called Liana made us sit there with our, like in the Buddha position with the soles of our feet together on our bums and just hold our arms straight above us. And we just had to sit there for an hour.
Oh,
ouch!
Do you think Liana had a hangover that day? She didn't want to teach.
No, because Liana did it herself. Liana was 56.
Oh wow!
And Liana was 56. Like Liana, you know, she used to be a dancer, and she just used to sit there in that position. And it was just one of those things where like I'd be there like screaming in pain, but I obviously couldn't complain because this like 56-year-old woman would be doing it in front of me. Yeah, so then like I was an actor for a while, and then like the acting just didn't really work out. Like it's not a very nice industry as far as I'm concerned. Like, from what I came to know of it, it was very difficult. It wasn't very nice, and it was also like the one thing I didn't like about it was just, you know, you could work your ass off, you just work so hard, and you know you could get good reviews, you could get, you know, like members of the audience could be coming up to you and telling you they thought you were really good in the bar afterwards, you know. Yeah. you know, and you're paying all this money for really expensive headshots and you're doing all this and stuff, but you could still just get nowhere depending on like whether the casting director thinks that you're even right to be seen for the position based on looking at your photo for like 2 seconds. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a lot of it was really hard and stuff like that. And I just sort of wasn't getting anywhere with it, which was a shame because I'd put so much into it. And then I started to kind of fall out of love with it. And no, well, it was just like I loved acting, but what was bad about it was it just started to make me hate the thing that I love, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. If I'm hating it if I'm loving life for 6 weeks at a time, but I hate the other 48 weeks out of the year, then what's the point? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. So had you during this time, had you continue to watch wrestling, or had you had sort of the traditional, you know, teenage years? Oh God, it's fake, it's a load of rubbish. Stop watching.
No, that never bothered me. I was always like, no, I didn't care. I was always so happy to suspend my disbelief. I obviously spent some time being like, no, it's real, like to all the people who hated it. But then obviously, like, you know, but then no, that never bothered me. I was always really good to suspend my disbelief. The only thing is, at one point I got so working hard. You know what the sad thing is that when I was at drama school, from 2008 to 2012. So I missed, and we did 12-hour days. So I missed all of CM Punk's run.
Oh.
I just missed Punk's. I just missed him, and like I didn't know what was going on and stuff. Like obviously now I realize how amazing he was and stuff, but like at the time I just totally missed like that amazing run he had. But
yeah, I missed that. I just wasn't watching at all. I did have a big period where I just wasn't interested in it.
It also isolated me at school as well because I was into wrestling at the same time Pokemon came out.
Okay, yeah.
And I just didn't care about Pokemon.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, what did you talk about Pikachu? Have you seen the Stone Cold Stunner? You idiot. do you know what I mean? Like
that's a critical hit right there.
Yeah. It'd just be like, what do you mean you're looking for Mewtwo? Do you know what the rock bottom is? You fool. Like,
yeah.
You know, no. Yeah, no. Like,
I've been on your side with that one for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I wish you'd been there. Then what happened? And then, so then I just sort of, but then I still wanted to do like performance-based stuff. I still wanted to perform. And I went through loads of stuff. Like I tried to do stand-up comedy at one point. I even looked into like sort of half looked into being a magician. Do you know that's how ridiculous that is? Like I half looked into that.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't find anything. And then I started sort of watching wrestling again, you know, and just looking up, you know, and like I'd be doing a play and I'd be in the wings, like waiting to go on. Wings means behind the curtain, anybody who doesn't know. And I'd just be there and I'd be waiting for my cue and I'd just have my phone out and I'd just be watching Jericho versus Rhino 2001 SummerSlam for the Alliance. Do you know what I mean? Like I'd just be doing that and then I'd pause, go out, do a scene, come back, and I'd just be more interested in that than I was anything else. I just thought, I wonder like what if there's any wrestling near me. Like I could give that a try. I've always wanted to give it a try. Why not? Yeah. You know, like I just thought, you know, fuck it. Like why not? Like I'll look it up and whatever. And then I found the Projo, which is now Knuckle Locks Gym.
Yeah.
In Brixton, and I actually live a 15-20 minute cycle away from it.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
So
and I just,
when was this? What year was this?
This was so when I first found it, it was November 2015, I think. So then I like was going to sign up for a November course, and then I just like absolutely just like bottled it. And then I just totally bottled it. I was like, oh, I'm not fit enough, and then I'll get fit. And then I was sort of doing it, and then like my girlfriend at the time, I sort of said to her like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this. She was an actor, and I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. I'm not sure. And she just said, well, you know, and she just said to me, you can only wait so long to live your life the way you want to live it. If you want to do this, you're going to run out of time.
Wise words.
Yeah, because I was in my mid-20s. So she was like, if you're going to do this, she didn't care. She didn't care about wrestling, but I think she was just bored of me moaning.
Yeah.
She was just like, just go, just get out the house for 3 hours a day, so I just don't have to talk to you. Like, So I think that was what. But she, yeah. So and then I booked the course, and then I went and did it. And my first ever wrestling course was on January the 4th, 2016.
Wow.
That was my first class.
So 2 years.
Yeah, so 2 years. So it's been 2 years since I stepped in a ring. It's been 2 years since the first time I stepped in the ring. Sorry, and then I debuted. My very first match against Chuck Mambo at Potential 4 for Progress Wrestling at the Bedford in Balham, and I think that was on August the 4th.
Of course, they used to have. Yeah, they used to do stuff at that pub, didn't they, in Balham?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, it was badass. And then I wrestled Chuck Mambo there. So I trained for 6 months, but I was also coming off of like a sort of like the actor lifestyle, which was sort of like I couldn't have a job. Do you know what I mean? Because I couldn't. I had to be available all the time. So I was just free all the time. So I like did the beginner's course, which was 8 weeks. Past that, and then I was just literally in there every day. Just literally went there every day. Like it was an amazing outlet for everything that I've been feeling and all the disappointment that I've been feeling about my acting career.
Yeah, something to really sort of invest your time in and go for. It certainly sounds like, well, you've ended up in the perfect place with your background, your love of wrestling, and then your obviously your love of performing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, good. Yeah, lucky, eh?
Yeah, really good. So you said you did the 8 week course and then you went there every day. So how does that work? You can just turn up and you can just work in the gym and.
See, well, at the time it was you had your slot. So I had a slot on Friday night, which was so my class was from 6:30 till 9:30 every Friday night, which was awesome because it meant that I wasn't going to the pub.
Yeah.
And then I think you could also go to, and at the time they also had Monday conditioning and drills and things like that. And, drills are, you get so good at wrestling from just going and doing drills. Mm-hmm. So I went to that. So I would just go twice a week and it's just your basics, you start and you just do rolls, bumps, bit of chain wrestling, running the ropes, a little wrestling sequence. And you would just do that, and then you'd do it for 8 weeks, and on the 8 weeks you'd have an exam, and then the head coach, I was trained by Darryl Allen, and then the head, so he would be there, and then John Briley from Progress would, at the time, because it was the project at the time, would also come and watch, which was like equally terrifying.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, he was. Yeah, because he's he's a very straight talking man, John. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so you're always gonna get the truth from him. So sometimes brutally, in a good way, but brutally. And and that was it really. And then you just, and then after that, it is what you make it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? So there's no I don't know. I haven't been there for a while, but like there's no like intermediate course or advanced course. You just pass the beginner's course, and then it is what you make it. And then you will be a wrestler if you really want to be a wrestler.
Okay,
that makes sense. What I mean?
Yeah, that sounds good. That's good. That allows the cream to rise to the top, I guess.
I guess so.
Yeah, if there's a lot of people who just do the course and then sort of wait for the opportunities to come, then they're not.
I guess so. I mean, it's also just it's not it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
It's not for everyone. Like, because it hurts. It hurts, and there's like. I personally think that you need to have like a bit of a chip on your shoulder. I think that that's what works for me. I think that you need to have some sort of agenda. Like there needs to be something in your heart and in your mind and your soul that like is pushing you as hard as you can to not care, to like, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to be as good as this as I possibly can be. And like, no one's going to stop. Do you know what I mean? Like there's got to be a little bit of bitterness in you, in my opinion. Like there's got to be something in you that's making you do it, I think. And that could just be the love of it. But like for me, it was, like this is something. I just remember doing the first class and I came home to my girlfriend at the time and just like walked in. And she was like, "How was it?" And I was like, "I can do this.
Yeah, this is for me.
This is for me." And I didn't know why. I think it was just because I was so bitter about like everything that had happened with my acting career. And I was like, fine, I'm just gonna do this and just rip myself to pieces and see where it takes me.
Amazing.
After the first day of training, how achy were you, like, and sore?
The first day wasn't that bad. I was okay. The second day was bad. The week after that was bad. When I came back from the second day, the second week I came back and I was just like, I'm in so much pain. It took bumps and stuff. Yeah, but quite achy, quite sore.
Yeah, massive shock to the body.
Massive shock to the body. But now it's sort of like, what's really funny about wrestling is that like the more you get into it, the more like injuries are never funny. Injuries are never funny. When someone gets hurt, it's never funny. Like the first priority is always like, is that person okay? You know, like and it's such a lovely place, but such a lovely place to be, backstage in locker rooms, because like then somebody will get hurt and then the whole room suddenly like will just turn and be like, is that person okay? Even if they don't know that person.
Yeah.
Even if that person's not in their close circle of friends, everybody will suddenly show real concern for that person. But then when it becomes apparent that person is fine, then it becomes really funny.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like not like really really funny, but then it becomes a sort of like, shit happens. Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
And you just kind of get used to it, and you kind of get used to like getting up and being achy and just being like, ugh! Do you know what I mean? And then like you come down and you see like Brighton the first day. I didn't wrestle on the first night, obviously, but like I came out. We were all staying in the hostel, and then like I get up and all the other wrestlers are like, ugh, ugh. Do you know what I mean? Like, walking around, just preparing to like wrestle again that night.
Yeah, you were feeling quite fresh.
Yeah, quite achy.
Okay, so what I wanted to go on to next, Spike, is obviously I've got an idea now of how you started getting into wrestling and how the training was going. At what stage did you start thinking about what your gimmick was going to be? Is this something you were thinking about years and years before when you were 9 years old, or?
No, not really. It's interesting. So when I first started, I started with all these different. I had loads of different ideas. I had loads of different ideas and loads of different things I wanted to be, and I was like, I could be this, I could be that. Like it was nice because I had a really sort of creative sort of life, and it was nice to be. It was nice to like be thinking stuff up again. And like there was one time where I wanted to come out in like a parka and a snapback, and I wanted to like have. Was my logo and a can of spray paint, and I wanted to put plants in the audience who had like just plain t-shirts, and I wanted to come up to them and spray my logo onto their t-shirt. I had that.
Amazing.
I actually thought it was really good, but then I thought that would probably be a health and safety violation.
Yeah, you get a heavy asthmatic standing next to one of your plants, and
yeah, exactly. And then all of a sudden Twitter goes mad. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, of course.
So I had loads of like. So Spike sort of came from I think it was a promo class at the Projo, and we didn't really do that at the time. It was one of the very few. The thing is, it was quite funny. Like Daryl always used to say, like if he advertised a promo class, like Wednesday promos, just no one would come. Like like everybody would be everybody would be well up for just coming in and just like taking reverse ranas. But like nobody wants to come in and just like practice standing and talking for like 30 seconds because it's really daunting.
Yeah.
It's such a daunting thing. Like public speaking, so terrifying. But I was obviously like really G'd up for it. Like I obviously really enjoyed it. And then I turned up and I sort of tried like loads of different things. I didn't really know, and I didn't really want to. I sort of knew I wanted to be a villain. I knew I wanted to be a villain, and I knew that I wanted to be. I didn't just want to be a villain. I wanted to be evil. I knew that's what I wanted, but I didn't know. And I'm not from Cambridge. I'm from Ely, which is like, I think it's 20 miles south of Cambridge. But I did go to a hoity-toity private school. I went to those places. I'm obviously like fairly well spoken because like my dad's a proper Cockney and my mum's from Essex, and they're both working class, like really like good, hard, salt of the earth, working class people. But they were kind of like, back when I was a teenager, they were kind of ashamed of that in a way. So they tried to like they sent me to a private school to try and stop that from happening to me, which is ridiculous in hindsight. you know.
Yeah.
And if you spoke to my mum now, you'd never believe she was from Essex. She's like trained herself to speak, to talk like that. Like she sounds like the
really?
Queen. Yeah,
Interesting.
it's weird. Well, she's in her 70s, so
Yeah.
like she's literally had like 50 years worth of training herself to do that. So she's an expert at it. But so Daryl then just said, like, there's a girl there who's from Basildon, and he said, okay, you two just have an improvisation now, Cambridge versus Essex, go. And I upped sort of my accent. I upped my accent to a really posh accent, and I can't remember what she said. Like, I think I don't think I acted horribly to them. I think it was horrible to her. I think I just said a couple of like really sort of ignorant things, and then the whole room just pissed themselves laughing, and everybody was like, "That's it. That's something you should look at, because nobody's doing the posh boy thing. So maybe you should maybe try and bring that to life." And then, you know how I said like you need to have a bit of bitterness.
Yeah.
Like, so one thing people used to say about acting was always used to be like, acting is just about being in the right place at the right time. Well, that's horseshit, isn't it? Because it's like, well, great. Well, that's a totally unobtainable thing. Do you know what I mean? Like being in the right place at the right time. And then when the posh boy thing came along for wrestling, and I was like, I can have total control of this. And you know, if you look at just out there what's happening in the world, and you look at like what's happening in, you know, like I think, you know, Trump was just about the election was just about to happen, and we all know what happened there. You know, like, you know, we'd had, you know, the coalition, which had just like gone to shit, you know, like all of this stuff. And I was like, this is the right place, and this is the right time. And I was like, I can make this the right place at the right time, and I can have control over it. And I was angry about stuff that was happening as well. And I was like, I can make a statement with this. Like, I can actually, like, I don't have to be an artist. I don't have to be just a wrestler. I can be an artist. I can do things and say things that will make people think, and I can be cathartic. Do you know what I mean? Like, people who are angry can come to a show and they can boo me.
Yeah.
You know, like, this will be like, this is something amazing. And then I just got really excited by it. And then that's where he came from, really. It was just sort of the idea of, and that's where the Tory thing actually, I didn't come up with the Tory thing. Fans chanted Tory at me, and then I decided to run with it. I decided to embrace it. Just like I said, like they saw something in me that they obviously connected with, and that was what was going on in their head. Yeah. So I was like, okay, fine, then I'm a Tory. If you know, like there's no sense in like not running with something that's clearly over with them.
No, it's absolutely perfect. It really is. Just great timing, as you say. And how about the actual King of Strong and Stable style? I mean, obviously, you know, you couldn't avoid Theresa May saying that particular phrase around that time. So was that just something that clicked in your head, or was it somebody else come up with that idea? Or
no, actually, a fan tweeted it at me. A fan who I've since blocked.
Perfect. That is absolutely perfect.
A fan who I've since blocked because they're not a nice person have.
Okay, it's not because they're asking for a cut of the merch.
No, it's not. It's just because they're not very nice. Like they tweeted it at me, and I was like, "That's perfect."
Yeah,
you know. And I was just, but again, it was like, it seemed to be something that was igniting. It was igniting the creativity of the fans. You know, like it was something that the fans could latch onto, and something that they could understand, and not like they could understand, like, oh, here's something you can understand, fans. You know,
here's something at your level.
Here's something that you can get, fans. You know, like it wasn't like that. It was just, but it was just like they're biting. You know, the fans are biting, and if they're biting, then I'll just go with what they want. And then I think the reason I called him Spike was because the biggest posh dickhead I ever met in my life was called Spike.
Perfect.
But Spike wasn't his name. Spike was a name he'd given himself. His real name was Hugh.
Of course it was.
You know, like his real name was Hugh, and he was such an arsehole, and a lot of Spike comes from him as well. Like a lot of his like mannerisms and stuff comes from him.
Right.
And that's kind of where he comes from. That's where he comes from, and now he's just an ongoing. I'm quite proud of the fact that I feel like he's quite malleable. I feel like you can put Spike in any situation and he'll get heat.
Yeah. Do you find he gets a different reaction when you're in different promotions around the country? Or
No, he's unanimously hated across the country.
I always wondered whether it feels like in Guildford, whether he'd be like a white meat baby face, just
No,
completely over.
Yeah. Just doing drop kicks and head scissors and going shall I every 5 minutes. No, like he's unanimously hated, but he varies. So like when I do camp shows, I do a camp show in Kent when it rolls around in the summer, and there he's not a Tory, he's a headmaster.
Oh, yeah, nice.
You know, so he becomes like a headmaster, and there are all these kids, and they'll put me against like Maverick Mayhew, and then it will just be like kid versus headmaster, and then we'll just have we'll just like, I was going to say we'll have a barn burner. It's nowhere near a barn burner, but like, but we'll just, and then we'll just go out there and have a laugh and stuff. But no, like it's weird, isn't it? Like I thought like if I went to a Tory place, like people would, but even the Tories, but even like when I go to those places, they hate him as well because. I don't think they like the caricature of him. I've had loads of people, no, not loads really, that's an exaggeration, but I have had people kind of say things to me and tell me that like my character's divisive and tell me that like, not offensive, but that it's, like it's divisive and it's like me trying to exploit a situation, me trying to exploit negative situations in politics to get heat for myself so that I can be successful and things like that. So I do get that. People do sort of hate on him for that a little bit, but I don't really care.
No, such a fucking good heel. Like it feels so good to boo you sometimes. It just feels great.
I think that's it. I think I said this in an interview the other day. I think somebody said it was a particular fan said like when I first. Do you remember? Like I don't know if you guys have ever seen the video that I made with James Musselwhite.
No, I don't think I have actually.
Oh, okay. So there's a video in March last year. I released a video called "Check My Privilege," which I made with James Musselwhite, and it was a video.
Sorry, yeah, I have seen that. Sorry, I thought I was trying to picture you with another guy in the video.
No, it was.
I know what you mean now. Yeah, I saw that yesterday.
So it's me in like a mahogany room smashing stuff up and eating cheese.
Yes. Yeah, that cheese was amazing. Big mouthful.
Yeah, that was on the fly as well. That was like James Musselwhite just being like, pick up the cheese and eat it. And I thought it was brie, and it wasn't. It was like Stilton, and it was rough. And I'm like there chewing it, and I'm like, please shout cut. So when I released that video, I remember like this one guy, tweeted at me. No, he didn't even tweet at me. Just somebody sent it to me. Somebody sent a tweet to me, and it was like, I don't want heels in wrestling that represent like stuff that's really going on. That's not good. Like this isn't right. This isn't, it's divisive. It doesn't help anything. And things like that. And then someone said why, and then he said because fascists are actually in power and things like that. And I was like, and I got that from a few people. And I was like, number one, like, that's a really strong term. That's a really strong term to say. Like, my mother's a Tory. My mother is an actual Tory, and she's bloody lovely. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
there are lovely Tories out there.
There are, but there are, like they just don't necessarily share. They're probably in it for different reasons. But like a Tory or a rich person does not necessarily a fascist make. And also, something that I feel really strongly is like you could look at it like I'm just trying to exploit things for heat, but you could also look at it the fact that like I dress up as a ridiculous caricature of something, and then I stand in the middle of a room, and then 500 people cathartically boo me. Like I think that makes a bigger statement than you calling Theresa May a fascist on Twitter.
Yeah.
I think it's exactly that. Yeah, I was going to say that it is cathartic for the crowd. And I think that's absolutely brilliant. More power to you for giving people that opportunity.
I think so. I think it's also like, it's just really short-sighted for like, considering we're in 2018, like Charlie Chaplin used to make movies about him being Hitler. Obviously I was an actor. Like I'm a really big fan of Bertolt Brecht. Like that's what he did. Yeah. Like that's what burlesque is based on. It's it's just me bringing that to a different art form. And I'm an artist, that's the way I look at it. Like I can, this is, Will Ospreay does flips. I wear a waistcoat and call people poor and they boo me. Obviously his is much more impressive than mine, but like, you know what I mean?
Well, no, I do. Absolutely. So, I mean, it's just anything these days, people will jump on. They'll anything you do, and obviously with your kind of gimmick. Exactly. I mean, obviously, with controversy, I suppose we couldn't go through a chat without talking about what happened at Chapter 59, Progress Chapter 59, and the big reaction to that.
Oh, what, Spitgate?
Spitgate, hashtag Spitgate.
Yeah.
I think that's a different DVD, actually.
Yeah.
I watched that at the time, and on demand. I wasn't there. Didn't think a huge amount of it, apart from, wow, this is great heel work. And then obviously saw all the big, saw it blow out online. Saw everybody kicking off, and heard it talked about on other podcasts, and mostly hearing people sort of saying, what's the big deal? And the four of us talked about it quite a lot.
Yeah.
Sort of, saying, would you expect that when you're going out? That's not the kind of thing you want to experience. But then saying, well, it's wrestling, for God's sake.
Yeah, especially if you're in the front as well. Like, I'd be grateful I wasn't covered in blood.
Yeah. Fair enough.
And I went back and watched it yesterday. I loaded it up and watched it again, and it just sort of reinforced in my mind how good an entrance it was. I forgot the fact that you sort of walked through the crowd, stomped through the crowd, and everything you did. It was perfect. It was amazing, I thought. But what was your reaction to everybody kicking off?
Well, there were different levels of it. At first, it was like absolute devastation. Like, I was really sad when it really happened, because the thing is that people, at the time, Twitter was exclusively 140 characters. It's very difficult. People just put things basically, and so at first it was really hard because people were saying I'm lazy and like that's like just cheap heat and that I'm a prick and that people were saying that Progress should fire me and stuff like that, and which I thought was a bit strong because I was like, it's which was kind of hard. Like, so yeah, I would like to urge people to not be as so aggressive on Twitter because that was really difficult. I shouldn't have, I made a mistake, I guess, but like, I don't know. I feel like loads of different ways about it. I think, do you know what? I've always wondered like I've always sort of like walked around my house having monologues about how I would respond to this if somebody ever asked me on a public forum, and all of a sudden it's all gone. Which is really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it was a really interesting thing. I think that I learned several things from that experience. And the first one is that like, it wasn't so much the controversy that was hard. What was hard is because I've had it a couple of times, is trying to balance what's the stuff that I have to really pay attention to versus what's the stuff that I can kind of ignore. Or is just someone having a moan, or in some cases just laugh at, the way I look at it is, so with all the complaints and stuff, I kind of thought, well, I watch a lot of Kitchen Nightmares, and yes, there's an episode of Kitchen Nightmares. It's like I'm trying to actually bring a lot more Gordon Ramsay into Spike's character because I think it's awesome.
Yeah, amazing.
It's raw, Damien, but like so there's an episode called The Burger Kitchen, right? And it's in LA, and this crazy dad who's called Alan thinks that Yelp is trying to destroy his life. He thinks that Yelp is like there's this quite ludicrous conspiracy to shut his crappy burger restaurant down. And so like on one of the days, Gordon Ramsay does this kind of shock therapy thing where he gets all of the Yelpers who actually wrote on Yelp to come and stand on a stage and like tell them in a theater exactly why they had problems and stuff. And then this Alan guy goes nuts. And then Gordon Ramsay brings in a really successful chef. And then he says, I've had people on Yelp say that I have the best grilled cheese sandwich in the world. I've had people say it's the worst grilled cheese sandwich in the world. Do I change the sandwich? No. But like, if I have like 18 people tell me that my burger's under-seasoned, then there has to be something there that I need to look at. Yeah. And that's kind of how I viewed it. I think that like loads of people were like, oh, it doesn't really matter. It's not a bad thing. But at the same time, like there were a lot of people that were like, I don't like that. I actually don't think that is good. I don't appreciate it. And a lot of people said it was cheap and stuff like that. And I thought, well, you know, it doesn't cost me anything to not do it. Like I have enough faith in myself and my own ability that I can go out there and get just as much heat by not doing it. You know, and I would never want to upset anybody. So I thought it doesn't cost me anything to do. I'll just stop doing it. So now what I do is like if I only really do it at Riptide because
I was going to say I've seen you've done it to Sam from the podcast.
Hi Sam. So I only do it at Riptide because the fans at Riptide kind of get it, like they're in on it. Yeah. You know, and I have a fan who stands at the front of the entranceway at Riptide, and specifically so I can spit in his face. And now I don't spit in his face anymore because he does it. So I only really do it there, and I also only do it if people are having a go at me. So if someone's like actively mugging me off, then I'll do it to them.
Well, the best thing about Sam was I don't know if you'll remember, but he was actually wearing one of your T-shirts.
Oh, I think that's why I did it.
Yeah, and we'd come up to you at the halftime break, and I think he was looking to buy one of your other T-shirts, which you didn't have, and we had a nice chat.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Then you come straight out, look at him. I stood behind him because I thought, well, this is going to be safe. He's got a T-shirt on. You're not going to target him.
How wrong you were.
And then you just laughed all over it. It's amazing.
You know, absolutely, but I think. So there's that. There was also the fact that, like, the other thing that I learned from that experience was don't ever put anything on Twitter unless you can 100% guarantee it's going to be shrouded in context.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, like.
I wish there was an emoji for context.
I wish there was a context emoji as well.
Yeah.
You know, so the thing is, one of the things that. So there were a few people who like really came after me and was like, that poor guy. You know, like in the video, the guy like gets up and he gets up, he like. You know, and then he gets up and he gets aggressive, and then I get down off the apron, and then and then the security, and then and ring crew like gets in the way and like blocked him, and I'm yelling at him from behind ring crew.
And he's quite a prominent figure, isn't he, in the wrestling community? Brit Wrest's Away Day in terms of Twitter. You know, he's well known, so you can imagine that might rile some people up more.
Yeah, well, I went backstage and Eddie Dennis was like, "Oh, him? Oh, mate, you're in trouble." Like. But I think he said something like that. But then so in that video, I get in the ring and then I turn to him and then I think I like give him the finger and then kiss the finger and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think that's what I do. But what you can't see in that video is when I'm looking at him and kissing him, he's smiling. You know, he's smiling at me and like he's laughing with his friends and then like after the video, like he got a Ben chant, like a substantial portion of the group were going, Ben, 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 Ben. And then I leant over the ropes and said, you're welcome for that moment. And then he gave me a thumbs up. And that was obviously like the controversy hadn't happened. And then it happened. And then I saw him at a chapter show. Like I was literally walking through a group of people and this is the thing, right? This is the thing about Twitter that's so dangerous is that I was really nervous to go to that show. Like I was really nervous to be among Progress fans because I had been made because like some of the stuff had been so vitriolic, like some of it had been vicious, and I was like, you know, I think people need to be a little bit more like, I would know, you know, like we don't ever do anything because we want to upset you or offend you. You know, we're trying stuff out, and sometimes again, like I watch loads of crap TV, and I was watching comedians in cars getting coffee. Have you ever seen that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Jerry Seinfeld. There's an episode where he's with Steve Harvey, and Steve Harvey says that someone said to him that he like the joke that he told crossed a line, and he's like, well, I didn't know the line until I crossed it. You know, I didn't go, there's the line, I'm going to put it over there just to upset you. You know, I was doing it, and then people said you crossed the line, and I'm like, oh, okay, I won't cross it again. Thanks, but now I know. Now I know, you know, and I think that was the difference. And I think also, as a wrestler who's been doing it for 18 months, the great thing about wrestling now is that there's so many eyes on it. We're able to have these amazing matches in front of 700 people. Well, not amazing matches, but we're allowed to have like these amazing opportunities in front of 700 people.
Yeah.
Which is something that the generation before us and before us didn't have. But we've also got the thing of like, when we make mistakes, we make them in front of 700 people. We make them in front of people who tweet. If we make a mistake, it might end up on Botchamania.
Yeah.
There are so many eyes on wrestling, and there are some people who are so willing to jump on mistakes and jump on stuff, and for some reason then think that I must be a bad person because of it. And that was hard. I didn't like that. So I've been talking about this for ages now. I'm so sorry.
No, it was a big deal for you. I can totally imagine, and particularly because that was. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was the first sort of chapter that you'd appeared on for a little while, wasn't it? Or...
No, that was my chapter debut.
That was okay. Oh, see, I thought I'd seen you on Progress before, but I must be getting confused.
No, I'd been on the Dome.
Okay.
I wrestled on the Dome and stuff
yeah,
like that.
you'd performed in a couple of dark matches as well. Is that right? Mm-hmm. At Ali Pali and things like that.
Yeah, I did the dark match at Ali Pali with Chuck Mambo.
Yeah.
The only thing that I can, I don't want to talk about it for ages, but the only thing that I just want to say is like, if anybody out there was genuinely upset or offended, my intention is never to do that. I don't want anybody to come to a wrestling show and feel like they were assaulted or isolated. But, at the same time, please appreciate that, like, please don't just naturally assume that me or any other wrestler is doing something because they're a bad person. Being a villain in 2018 is really difficult because, you want people to you don't want people to actually hate you, but you want people to like want to boo you. And it's a difficult line to cross. And I've heard people be like, well, Zach Gibson gets away with it. Yeah, well, that's because he does his stick. He does his thing. I can't do his thing. If I do his thing, then people will be like, he's copying Zach Gibson. I have to find my own route. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
So, and I think, and sometimes there were people who were doing this, like, he spat all over people. That's disgusting. Well, Chris Brooks used to spit all over people. Well, it was Chris Brooks' thing. You should have been doing it anyway. Well, what's the thing you're annoyed about?
Yeah, I saw a lot of that online, and then I nearly went down the rabbit hole of reading every single comment, and I avoided it.
Well, even just at Wrestle Kingdom, the Killer Elite Squad went in the crowd and was spitting water at everyone.
I know. Somebody tweeted. I got 3 tweets yesterday, being like, "Cody Rhodes is stealing your stick, mate. Have a word."
There you go.
Because he spat on someone, and and then even if you go down that thread, people are like, "God, what a wanker!" Do you know what I mean? So
yeah,
Okay.
Well, I'm
sorry, everyone.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay, Spike.
Thanks.
We will move
sorry
on from that.
About that.
No, I understand. Particularly if it was your chapter debut, because it would have been something that you would have been building up to, and then for that to be the takeaway, the initial takeaway, must have been tough. But anyway, we'll move on. Just as a side note, I watched the Live at the Dome stuff that you did shortly after that, and I thought your entrance coming out with the empty bottle and then sort of pretending to pour it and then doing the mimicking the crying was perfect. So perfect. Yeah, that was great.
Has him up in the fireman's carry on the apron! Oh! And he dropped the WWE United Kingdom champion on the hardest part of the ring.
Well, there we go. That is the end of part 1. I hope you guys have enjoyed it so far. We'll be back tomorrow with the second half of our conversation with Spike, where we talk about his time at Anarchy Pro and Riptide Wrestling and all sorts of other stuff as well. So I hope you tune in for that. In the meantime, if you want to get in touch, you can email us at hardestpartofthering@gmail.com, or we are at hardestpartpod on social media. Thanks again for downloading and listening, and we'll catch you tomorrow for part 2. That was the hardest part of the ring.
That is the hardest part of that ring.